Thanks to Ubisoft for providing me access to the game. It's a new week in the Crew Motorfest and a new month and a new season. That means we have a brand new summit for you. This one's called the Lowrider Custom, and this is my summit guide. Let's go. All right, real quick before we get into it, I did record all of these clips with the early access I had. Thank you so much to Ubisoft for providing me access to the game early. And because of that, I didn't have all of my cars in my normal garage, which means there is one event where I used a car that I'm not going to recommend in this guide. Anyways, I'll explain it when we get there. The rest of the stuff is straightforward. It is the summit, and these are my runs. I definitely could probably optimize a little bit more, but I think for the purposes of the guide, this is good enough. All right, let's get into it, man. Let's talk about the cars first. In the summit bundle, you're gonna get the Chevy Impala Lowrider Orange Edition. And yes, I translated that because my attempt at Naranja Edition is not that great. Sorry, everyone in Spanish. You also need the Plymouth Roadrunner La Verde Edition. Again, my Spanish is terrible. And then additional vehicles you're gonna need for this one are the Agera R and the Chevy Camaro RS in Street 1, the Porsche 911 Carrera RS 2.7 in Street 1, and then you'll need a slalom car. You'll see in the clip later on that I used a Street 2 car because it was the only class where we actually had a score breaker set. So I wanted to use that to get the highest score possible for the video. But basically, you're going to use an Alpha GP car or whatever car you have score breaker on. So those are your options there. Now, the keys to this summit are going to be patience and shortcuts. And I'll explain the patience thing as we get into the events because there's a brand new event type and it's going to take a little bit of a learning curve. Not really, because this is a familiar game mode type that we've seen in other games, not necessarily racing games. But anyways, we'll get into it. And then, of course, the shortcuts. There's a few of them in some of these races. So anyways, here are the pro settings for the cars that I just mentioned. All right, the first event is called Impala Lowriding. Now, this is one of those new events that I was talking about in the intro. This is called a car dance. Now, this is where you use the hydraulic suspension of the lowriders to make the car bounce around and all this. All you have to do here is just press the direction of the arrow when it hits the circle. So it's very simple. This is very much like Guitar Hero or, you know, DDR or something like that. You're just pressing the required button on rhythm with the music and everything. You'll see. Let's play it. I'm going to show you something. Also, I've taken the sound out of this one because I don't want to get any DMCA or copyright issues here on YouTube. But basically, the notes are going to be scrolling in from the right. You hit them on the perfect timing with the circle. It's very, very simple. Now, how do you get higher score? That's the real question here, because most of you are probably just going to enter this and, you know, maybe you'll hit every single note the first time and you're like, how do I get higher score? These guys are getting ridiculous scores. The first thing is, if you want to get the max score on this, or if you want to get a higher score on this, you have to play on 5 out of 5 difficulty. If you're not playing on 5 out of 5 difficulty, you don't get as many notes. It's not as fast. And for each note that you get a perfect, you're getting a plus 600 points. So not only are you getting points for hitting the note, you're getting a plus 600 points. And if you get multiples in a row, you'll get even more points. Your multiplier goes up as you get a bigger streak. So if you miss a note, just start over. That's my advice. The next thing is, you're going to want to at least get good on all of these. If you get good on all of these and not perfect, you'll be okay. But the key is 5 out of 5 difficulty and try to perfect as many of these notes as possible. And the more you get in a row, the better. Ideally, you don't want to miss a note for the entire thing and you'll get a good score. Now, with mine, I actually scored very, very high because I got a lot of perfects. And you can tell by the background gameplay, I'm not hitting all of them. And I'm really sorry that I can't give you the music here because it is sort of a vibe. But I got 105,000 points on this event and it's fine. It's not like, I think it could be much better. But as you can see, 157,000 summit points. That's like the max score you can get. It's number 1 on the leaderboard right now. And I think Rhino actually beat me. So that's a little misleading. He beat me by a little bit on this one. So anyways, let's move on. All right, the next event is called Low and Slow. Now for this one, I'm going to be using the Camaro RS. It's one of the best handling cars in this class, and it definitely makes a big difference on this course. So this is just Kyusha Spirits, one of my test courses. It's pretty simple. There's only a couple of cuts, so let's skip straight to those. All right, this first corner at 11%, you're going to want to take the gutter and then make sure you cut across the grass, just like I did here. So gutter, cut across the grass. At 20%, you're going to cut across the grass as well. At 54%, you're also going to be cutting across the grass here. These next couple of turns, the gutters are important. This one here for sure. Make sure you nail this gutter. I slid out of it a little bit. I think my time can be better. Nail this gutter as well. It's important. That one's really important. You'll slide out. And then this one, you kind of have to half throttle. Nos across the bridge. And then we come to the biggest shortcut on the course. Stay to the left. And then these pack of breakable trees here are your visual cue to start turning to the right. You're going to go across into this grass a little bit. You're going to nos through it if you don't feel like your speed is good enough. You're going to head straight for the checkpoint and reset when you get there. Got to watch out for that wall on the right as well. Make sure when you reset, you're turning left to come out of the reset, because you'll end up in the wall if you aren't. Now the rest of the course is literally just knocking out these gutters. So you have a gutter here, you have a gutter here, and then you have the final gutter turn, which is right here. And as long as you hit those fairly well, I think you'll get a good time. Just keep in mind the grass shortcuts and then the reset shortcut. That's it. Let's move on. All right, this next event is called Lowrider Cruising, and you're going to be using this Naranja edition Impala Lowrider. I feel like I'm doing something just not... Anyways, let's get with it. This car handles like garbage, man. It's terrible, terrible, terrible. What I've noticed is on some of these turns, it actually benefits you to be in a gear that's a little bit higher than your normal gear. Now notice this is the first shortcut of this race. I'm gonna go back because I was talking about this whole car thing. Anyway, so here's where you're first gonna cut this shortcut. You go left of this flag. Now there's a tiny little space that you can squeeze between this car and this tree. This stuff is breakable. However, if you clip this blue car, it makes it easier on laps 2 and 3 to get through here. So I actually ran into it on purpose to try to knock it out. When you make contact with a parked car on a race, the next lap through, it despawns that car. So it makes it open and clear for the next time you have to go through here. Again, I want to just talk about the handling of this car real quickly, because it just feels terrible. The back end slides out a lot, and any bumps or anything, the car goes crazy. So basically what you want to do is just be in a gear higher than you normally would be, and you can let the engine sort of bog throughout the turn. You can also just fully let off the throttle in those turns, because the second you give the car throttle, the back end wants to slide out. So that's my advice for driving the car. But outside of that, let's take a look at the shortcuts. Again, this is the first one. Knock the blue car out of the way, and then you go over to here and reset right there, and it puts you here. You don't have to take that hard turn. Now in this turn, notice how I'm sort of being off the throttle. I'm in gear 4, really bogged down. It just doesn't, the car just wants to slide. So like I said, just try your best to keep a hold of that back end. And that's basically it. That's the whole lap. The biggest key is make sure you're taking that reset shortcut and try to keep that back end gripped if possible. Notice it wants to slide every chance it gets. Anyways, let's move on. All right, the next event is called Hittin Switches, and you're going to be using the 911 Carrera RS 2.7. And this is actually a course that we just did last week, and we were in Hypercar last week. We're in Street 1 this week. You're going to take things slightly different. So here's my third lap on this race. I'm just going to show you one lap, and you guys can apply that to each of the laps you do. So let's get started. This first corner, you have to gutter. It's a hard right-hander, and especially on laps 2 and 3, you're coming at it with a lot of speed. Make sure you're guttering that corner. The next corner, you don't gutter. Now you did in Hypercar because you're going too fast to take it. In Street 1, you're only going 150 to 170. You don't need to gutter it. You're going to have more speed if you don't. Make sure you're using NOS on this straight. There's not any hard turns until you get to this hard right-hander. Again, use the gutter in this corner. I dropped to about 110 miles per hour, 105. I think you can take it around 115, but you know, 110, 105 is going to be safe. You don't really have to gutter that corner. Again, once you get out of it though, you got a long straight, just blast the NOS, make sure you get up to top speed. This one's important as well. Just like last week, you're going to be aiming for this, the middle of your car, aim for this checkpoint flag. It'll help you just get around the corner, and it'll place you nicely right when you get out of it. You don't have to gutter that left-hander. You don't have to gutter this right-hander, but you will gutter this right-hander. I actually slowed down a little bit, and you don't really need to. If you hit the gutter correctly, you can take that corner nicely, and that's basically the entire lap. Rinse and repeat on all 3 laps. All right, this next event is called Roadrunner Lowriding, and it's another one of those car dance modes. I don't need to go into the strategy. It's exactly the same as the previous one. Event difficulty 5 out of 5. Try not to miss any. What I will do is just look at, I missed a bunch of them. Restart. That's my advice. Restart. Anyways, what I will do is fast forward to the end so you can see what a score of not missing any notes and getting a lot of perfects. You're looking at a score out of around, I think it was 185. Let me get to the end here. 185,000 points, which will get you, I think, a max score in the summit. I didn't show it in this clip, of course, but I believe it was a 157 in terms of the max score. Just try not to miss any. Event difficulty 5 out of 5, and you're good to go. All right, and the last event is called New Mexico Journey, and this one is using the Plymouth Lowriding edition. And there's really nothing super tricky about this one. It's mostly highways. There's one spot which I'm going to fast forward to and show you that I think you need to take a certain path. Other than that, it's basically just NOS management. And if you have a slipstream partner, that's going to get you a better score because you'll be at top speed much longer than you would be solo. I did mine run solo. It is what it is. Let's fast forward. So the part that I think is important is that you take the left tunnel here, because when you exit the tunnel on the other side, it starts you at a wider angle to take that turn. It makes a big difference in terms of your overall speed. So let's take a look at this. This tunnel is not any more difficult than the other one. You just stay left when you get to the top of the hill. Try to keep your NOS at, near full tank. That way you can keep tapping it and making sure you keep your car at full speed. But basically you exit this tunnel and you have a wider angle for this turn. That's basically the only reason you take it. Other than that, it really doesn't matter which way you go. Not really. I mean, I always take the right side here, but it is what it is, man. It's all about NOS management and keeping your car at top speed for this entire event. All right, let's get into the feats. All right, and lastly, here are the feats. I'm just going to let these things play out in their entirety because the escapes are important to know the entire path. And again, I could have probably done these a little bit better or smoother and gotten a farther distance, but what's important here is the path. Just take note of where I'm going on these 2 escapes. All right, here are my final scores. If you guys have any questions about anything about the game or any of the games that I cover on the channel, you can send me a DM. I literally read every single message that comes my way and I reply. So anyways, thanks for watching. I hope this helps. I will catch you on the next one. Trigger out.